pond boss, tell me what to do to make all my Lunker Lake dreams come true.
Hello everybody, Bob Lusk, the Pond Boss, coming at you live. Looks like August 27th, 2024, 6:30 Central Time. Let's have a little fun. Let me know you're here. Say something. Say howdy, which y'all already know that. Hey, you know the deal here. Pond Boss Magazine, $35 a year, cheaper than a Friday night date, and it lasts a year. If you don't mind, well, let's see, I'm talking to myself. There's one viewer. All right. Woohoo, here we go. You guys know the drill. Hashtag Pond Boss Magazine in the comment line. Click like and share to your timeline. Hello, John Henry. You're first up to bat, buddy. Or at least you're first one to comment. Looks like we got 2 viewers. Yep. Well, last week I was in Colorado with Mike Otto, and I'd found a little VRBO house there in Pagosa Springs, and man, that internet was so slow we couldn't even go live. And then the next day, we took off roaming through the mountainside, went up. Oh gosh, we went up to Creed, and then circled around through Slumgullion, passed through Lake City, and ended up in a little tourist town, pretty nice town. I can't remember the name of it, but we had a great time. Went through. Hello, Michael Eric. Good to see you up there in Iowa. Anyway, we went through a hailstorm. I've been through a bunch of hailstorms in my life, but this one, I mean, all we saw was a black cloud forming up at the pass. Hello, Jeremy Day. Jeremy and I have been texting back and forth the last 30 minutes. Hello, Doug Cusick. So anyway, this was pretty funny. It started raining. I knew it was going to rain. You could just kind of see the shafts of rain coming down. Well, as we got to the top of Slumgullion Pass there in Colorado, it started to hail, and it was perfectly round little balls of ice, about half as big as a marble. And when they hit the truck, you could hear them hit it, but they were hitting it and exploding. It was mush, which was kind of cool. So there was a turnoff to get off the highway, because now it didn't take 5 minutes, and there was a coating of ice laying on that road, and I knew it was going to be too slick, and I hit the brakes just to see, and yeah, we slid. So I turned off on a little alcove-looking thing. It ended up being a parking lot for hikers. And I look and I see this lone guy with rain gear and a hat standing under this overhang, like a little, where it has a map, you know what I mean? When you're going somewhere, when you're hiking, you need a map. Well, he was standing under that thing getting just pelted by ice cubes. Well, Otto and I pulled around a little lane, a circle by a little bathroom, and we just stopped. And that guy started walking over to us. And he said, "Hey, are you guys going to Lake City?" And of course, my first impulsive thought was, "No, we're not. Go away." But then I looked at Otto, he looked at me, and it was like, wait a minute. This guy's on a mountain by himself, no civilization anywhere around, and he's getting pummeled by hailstones. So I said, "Get in the truck." So he climbed in the truck, and Otto and I first, we're going to try to kind of feel him out, see what he's doing. It was what's your name? I'm Matt. What are you doing? I'm hiking the Colorado trails, and I'm over it. Well, come to find out, he was from Lexington, Kentucky, works for GE, and he services power plants. And so we hauled him, I think, 50 miles or whatever it was to Lake City, had a great conversation with him. But I have never seen that much hail accumulate that fast. And the temperature of the air went from maybe 80 to 65 in less than 15 or 20 minutes. It was very cool. Not like it is in St. Louis, where my friend Fred Bingham's hanging out, 102 degrees. Geez, you know what? The heat is mitigated here. I think that high pressure system has moved up and gone over, just hovering over St. Louis and part of the Midwest. So hate it for you guys, because we've had some really, really incessant heat, which is, that's Texas. That's Texas. Stephen Martin, 95 today in Kansas, where Doug is. Chuck Anzalone. Chuck sent me an email. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but I will. So anyway, I wanted to start talking about, as funny as it seems, 102 in St. Louis, and triple digits in a big part of the Midwest. We're about a month away until it's officially fall. So I think it's time we start thinking about our ponds in terms of what can we do to prepare for that. And one of the key things I wanted to tell you guys is that as the temperature begins to mitigate and go down a little bit, that's going to trigger your fish to want to begin to gorge themselves with food. So if you think about it, if we've done a good job as pond managers, we've provided what the fish need to spawn, they've reproduced. Hello, John Harson, good to see you, buddy. And I did answer your email, by the way, but you saw that. So, and if you've done a good job with some culling, if needed, and you've fed your fish and you're managing your food chain, you should go into the fall with a pretty good amount of bait fish to feed your game fish. And coming up soon, like now, in the next 90 days, that's going to be a good time to be evaluating your fish. So catch, weigh, and measure some, see how they're producing, see how they're growing, and judge them. Yeah, you can judge your fish. It's in the good book. We have dominion. So judge your fish. If you see some fish that are underperforming, go ahead and cull them. No sense allowing those fish that are underperforming red wine in a solo cup. I don't want to talk about it too loud. I'll get in trouble. I love my wife. She's watching Fox News while I'm broadcasting. She'll want to talk about current events. She's been gone a couple of days. So right now is a really, really good time to be evaluating your fish. Catch some, weigh them, measure them, judge them. And if you got some that need to be cold, turn them into ceviche or fry some bass or, make something tasty out of them. Cheaper than a Friday night date, John Harson says. Yeah, I've heard that before. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I do have a little bit of Woodford over there, but I'm saving that for when I get a little time with Fred or not. We'll see. I did want to also tell you, that's a Neil Diamond, Toby Keith song. You guys are pretty funny. I did want to, hello Kenny Sanderson. I did want to tell you guys a little bit about what happened in Colorado. I got to see some cool things. I'm going to write about it in Pond Boss. So here's what happened. My dear friend Mike Otto, that I've known for way over 30 years, the last couple of years he's dedicated his whole world to his wife. Well, she's been battling cancer for a long time, and it started getting tough. Well, he turned over the majority of the workload to his son-in-law and a couple of employees, and he stayed with his wife. Hello, Danny Mac. Good to see you. Thanks to my kid, Cat 38, and my little Oogie there. Here he is. There's Ron Ardoin from down there in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I'm going to be addressing the Institute of Higher Pondology coming up pretty quick, by the way. I will get back to that story, I promise. But Institute of Higher Pondology, I think we've got 7 guys registered. We got room for 15. It's $1,500, and it's about 2.5 days of pretty fun, intense curricula, hands-on, electrofishing, tagging fish, identifying plants, classroom time, all kinds of bells and whistles, good new stuff. We got some cool things going on, and Ron's coming. So that's made me want to say something. I mean, it's worth the trip just to meet that guy and talk about Boudin, talk about South Louisiana. So anyway, after Mike lost his wife, Jane, I gave him about a month. And then I called him. I said, hey, man, you want to run away from home for a few days? He said, I would love to do that because I know the amount of pressure that he's been under the last couple of years and especially the last year. It's been just intense. I thought it would be a good idea just to go kidnap him and run away from home. So when I called him, I said, hey, you want to run away from home? He said, yeah, I do. I said, what do you want to do? He says, I don't know. Let's go somewhere where it's cooler. Well, that kind of eliminated going east and north, so that made it go west. So I started thinking about Colorado. And as we got a little closer to the date, I called him up and said, hey, why don't we run up to Colorado? Do you care where we go? He says, I don't care. Just come get me. So we've got a mutual friend in Pagosa Springs, Sherman Wyman. So I called Sherman. I said, hey, Sherman, you know what? I think I'm going to escape, come up there and take Mike and just get up there where it's cooler, spend a few days, and just roam around Colorado. Anything cool to see? He says, yeah. He says, yeah, we just got through renovating about 2 miles of the San Juan River for trout. I said, how in the world do you renovate a river? So he started talking to me about it, and I remember about 25 years ago going up there and looking at some stuff that Mike Mitchell was doing in the San Juan River. And if you Google the San Juan River, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's a very cool river. And so we, and Mike has a mutual friend there with Sherman, Mike McDonald, who's an earth mover. And man, that guy understands river ecology and pond ecology in the ways that they need to know it. So we spent a full day roaming around with that guy. He canceled his calendar and just took us under his wing, and we piled in this 1-ton dually truck, and we roamed around Pagosa Springs, Colorado. And there were 2 things that really struck me. One of them was all the ponds that he builds are lined. And they're lined because the soils are suspect. There's not a lot of clay there. Plus, water is such a precious commodity that they go to the extra expense to put liners in a pond, make it look natural, so that they can regulate the water flow, because everybody in Colorado that has water has rights to the water, or they can't do anything with it. And some of these rights track back decades, maybe even centuries. Fred Bingaman, you're pretty funny. Red wine in a solo cup, chug-a-lug, chug-a-lug, makes me want to holler, hidey-ho. Burn, you Tommy, don't you know? There's Fred Bingaman right there. Well, you know what, John, Henry, but I mean, I knew that Mike needed that, and so not only did we get to escape, we got to see some cool stuff. You know, so back to the pond. So what they do there is when the snow melts, the majority of the water comes from that. So any running water sands a little bit of rainfall runoff. They don't have a huge amount of rainfall runoff, but that's kind of the part of the mountain deserts there. So they depend on water running off from snowmelt. So they got to manage it, because sometimes, especially with the way the climate is shifting, which I believe that, I could see evidence of it all the time, it's now the snow is melting faster than it ever has before. So when summer hits and that snow begins to melt, it's directed. Every stinking drop of that water is directed. I didn't have any idea about that. It's not random. So when the snow starts to melt, there's some, like around Pagosa Springs, there's man-made ditches that can guide the water where they want it to go, so that those that have water rights can take advantage of it and irrigate coastal or alfalfa or hay pastures or, you know, whatever they're growing. And Jacob West, good to see you, buddy. And you know, yeah, Otto is a great friend, and so Otto and I were just quizzing Mike McDonald about all these different ponds. So he showed us, and he showed us the liners, and he showed us where he'd made mistakes, and he showed us where, you know, he'd done things right, and they all have water control structures. So even these liner ponds, and they don't give 1 ounce of thought to fish. And the different ranchers have different goals. Now, the fish may be an afterthought for some of them, but the majority of them, it's to guide the water, impound it where they need it, and then release it to where it can be most efficiently used further downstream, either on that ranch or the next ranch. And in this case, the landowner wanted some, I think he called them elk wallows. So they designed some areas where elk can come down out of the mountains and have a place they can get in the water. And so that's by design, you know. And when you're using a liner, he uses an 80 mil liner with a felt overlay on top of it that is, engineering wise, can sustain this. It's the same strength as 5 inches of sand. Then you put 8 inches of soil on top of that on these liner ponds. That way when the elk wade in, they're not going to puncture the liner and make it leak. And let's see what Josh has said. Colorado's wild about our water here. Just because you buy land doesn't always mean, yeah, that's right. Yep, that's it. And I, I'd heard a little bit about it, but I'd never really given it a lot of thought. But it's all about water management. And they've even got commissioners, water commissioners. Every county's got a water commissioner. It's appointed by the state. So they've got these little devices that they put in these ditches where the water's flowing. It's a metal device where the water comes down to a certain width and a certain height. And they can tell how much water's flowing through that device just by looking at that metering device. And they calculate that. And that way, that's how they can tell how much water that landowner is diverting to be used, and is he within his water rights, which is pretty darn interesting. So, anyway, then I want to talk about the river. Holy cow, you guys are throwing me a whole bunch of love. I didn't mean that to happen, but by golly, that's just, look at that, what Fred's saying. Yep, Fred got to come hang out with us. I took Fred on the most memorable fishing trip ever. I think it was 38 degrees, misting rain right after a flood at Lake Tawakoni. Probably not the smartest thing we've ever done. It would have been better to sit home and drink some of that Woodford. Hello, Todd Austin, Steve Sharp. Good to see you guys. So, yeah, Ron, you're right. Debbie's kind of the queen of the party, buddy, and she's hilarious too. She's a lot of fun. She's really fierce in a good way. Hello, Howard Dietrich. Good to see you, buddy. Hadn't seen you in a while. Glad to see you checking in. So now, there's about the ponds in Colorado, and then we went to see the San Juan River, which is pretty daggum amazing. It's basically the river that collects all the snow melt and conveys it farther downstream. You know, I didn't take time to see where it ends up. I'll tell you something else. Google when you get a minute, Cement Creek. I remember this occurrence. There was, like the Bureau of Land Management had a reservoir full of toxic junk, and they allowed the dam to breach, and it breached into this. It's a tributary of this river, and it breached into the river and poisoned everything, killed everything in it. But there's so much snowmelt, so much water flowing through this river that it has a good tendency to cleanse itself. Yep, Bill Cody, you're right, Josh. So, I tell you what, I will post some pictures. But basically, the San Juan River is Colorado river rock. Looks like it might have been carved out eons ago by glacial movement, which I think a lot of the Rocky Mountains were carved by glacial movement, not only with uplifting, but with glacial movement cutting lanes through it. And that river is full of gravel and cobble. Well, the majority of the river is just wide and shallow. Wide meaning 140 feet wide and maybe 6 inches deep during this flow rate. And looking at that flow rate, it had to be somewhere around, best I could see, somewhere around 1,500 cubic feet per second. Well, when the snowmelt first kicks in, that river's up 6 or 7 feet, and it's really rolling. Here's what they've done that's so cool. These guys have figured out how to use the hydraulic power of the river to create habitat. And they do that by capturing boulders, and just picture this. Picture them coming into the river and making an upside down W. And the peak of the W is facing upstream. And the water is funneled down to that elevation-wise to where it goes over the 2 points of that W. Well, when they renovated it, the 2 miles of river that we looked at on Sherman Wyman's place, they went in with a track hoe, and they have to go through a lot of permitting, which I'm stunned they could even get a dead gum permit to do what they did in the public river. But the river's public, but the land adjoining to the river is not. So you can fish the river, you can float the river, but you better not get out. You're going to get shot, so to speak. An upside W is an M. Shut up. Oh, Captain Obvious, Trey, thanks for that, buddy. You just made my day. Yep. Hello, Mark Dyer. Good to see you. Trey Carpenter. Always, you're the funny man. Isn't that an M? Yeah, well, look at you guys. Yeah, okay, you explain it. Shut up. Okay, now, Buddy Floyd. Oh, Buddy Floyd from Mississippi is ready for a frost. Man, no kidding, it's hot over there. Hot in Mississippi. An upside down W, isn't that an M? Well, I'm no longer the smartest guy in the room. Thanks, fellas. Not that I ever was. So anyway, an upside down W is an M. Y'all are killing me. Or sideways E. I'm hanging up right now. You guys are funny. Everybody gets credit. Y'all are pretty damn funny. So anyway, what they're doing is, and with the Traco, they went in and dug out several feet of that cobble and took it on a hillside and buried it, so they could get some depth to where when the water does flow, it can continue to cleanse that out. And what was really cool from a biology standpoint is on the let me think I'm going to say this, on the legs of the M or the upside down W, the water was moving pretty slow. Then it funnels it down and dumps it over like in little waterfalls, which creates rapid current to help keep that cobble cleaned out. And when the flow rate's really high, it moves a bunch of that gravel further downstream and keeps it open, but it also creates little side eddies. And that's where the fish like to go, because when you have that just long flat river, it's not happy places for fish. But now with these upside down W's, it creates eddies where there's some water moving in kind of in a small circular motion, slowly, where the fish can get in that. But along those wings of the M, or the upside down W, or the sideways E, smart asses, that's where periphyton grows. And I was asking some questions about the rocks. So what the rock's made of? Is it granite? Well, come to find out, quite a few of those rocks are sandstone. Well, sandstone is silica. Silica is one of the key components periphyton needs to be able to grow. So these bacterial colonies and periphyton colonies and algal colonies will grow on those rocks, and when the water speeds up, it breaks them loose, and then they can float down and turn into food for whatever's chasing them, whether it's bugs or whatever. So that was kind of my take-home point on that. Okay, I'm going to back up here because I'm getting a little bit behind. Yeah, what are you going to call Debbie? I'm not giving you her number. What's the youngest age you entertain at your person hire pondology event? Well, we had a 6-year-old last time, but his daddy had to come, and he had to wear a life jacket all the time. So you know what? We had we actually did have a 6-year-old, and I didn't make him pay. I made his daddy pay. You know, let's get them all involved. Otherwise, we had, I think, 3 college students, we had one that was in college and 2 that had just graduated from college. So, I don't know, talk to me about it. I'm pretty flexible. Let's see here. Doug Cusick said something here, but let me back up. I'm going to back up. I know trout fishing is popular in Colorado, but what else do Colorado pond owners talk? You know what? In that river, Sherman Wyman was telling us that he's caught a 10-pound channel cat. He's caught smallmouth bass. And I do know that in Colorado ponds, that I used to talk to Mike Mitchell all the time. He's pretty well retired now for a couple of years. But he stocked everything from channel cat to largemouth bass to bluegills to smallmouth bass and to walleye. And it really kind of depends on that situation, what that pond's suited for, what the elevation is. I don't remember what the elevation was in Pagosa Springs, but I think it's somewhere around 9,000 feet. So that's going to be mostly cool water fish. Yep, like what Josh is saying to Doug. Yep, smallmouth, yellow perch, largemouth. Yep, that's right. He's right. Hello, Ron Krisman, smallmouth king. John Arson just pushed that M over to a W. I'm going to... Excuse me. I don't know where that came from. Howard District, 1 acre pond in Tennessee, right next to a creek that dumps green sunfish into the pond and floods. Is the word dang thing, you just let it go. Yeah. Are you originally from Kentucky, Bob? No, I'm really not. I'm originally from Texas. Texas, our Texas. Oh, hail the mighty state. No, Howard, it's not worth doing anything. Just let it go. Don't worry about it. Those green sunfish, if you've got a good, healthy population of predator fish, they're not going to let them dominate. If you don't, then they will. But it would be worth doing something if the source changed. If you can eliminate the source. But probably not. I know I'm not getting sleepy. I took a nap a while ago. I woke up early. So, no, I'm not from Kentucky. Thanks for asking. Let me see here. I'm reading all this stuff you guys are saying. Stay with that. Stay with Dr. Dittrich's question there. Okay, let me justify that a little bit. Green sunfish, like in Tennessee, they're going to spawn once a year, where bluegill are going to spawn 3 or 4 times a year. So if you get a few green sunfish dumped into a 1 acre pond in Tennessee when it floods, odds are low that they're going to establish. Odds are high that their numbers are going to get diminished just by predation. So I wouldn't do anything about it. I wouldn't worry about it. I used to would, but after I learned more about it, I quit worrying about it. Mark Dyer, I need to spray to kill cattails right next to a patch of lily pads. If I cut the lily pads off below the surface so they can't come in contact with the spray, will it harm them at all from coming back up next year? Probably not. Not this time of year. If you did it in spring, it might. But here we are knocking on the door of fall, especially where you are, Mark Dyer. Then you can, if you cut some of them off, that's not going to hurt anything. They'll come back next year. Okay, so Brent Rutan, so increase the feed quantity when the temperature is reduced. Absolutely right. What's the general rule to stop? Water temperature? Yes. Yes. John Harrison. Well, you know what? I don't have to be from Kentucky to like your bourbon, although I am doing some, I don't know what this is. It came in a box. Wouldn't drink it with a steak. It deserves a red Solo cup today. So, when's the general rule stop? When the fish stop eating, that's a good time to stop. So monitor your fish. Watch them. It's kind of fun anyway. You know, go out, feed the fish, watch them eat, and then they're going to let you know because they'll start getting sluggish. Like bluegill, for example, they start getting really sluggish in the 50s. Channel catfish get real sluggish in the 50s. Bluegills start getting sluggish in the 50s. I fed bluegills all the way to the mid-40s. I just cut the feed way, way, way back. That's how, actually, there's a little secret. That's how we grew 3.5 pound bluegills. I said that right. 3.5 pound bluegills in North Carolina because we fed them all the way through the winter. And there were just enough of those feed hogs to stay on that feed that they thrived and grew real well, and they fed over the wintertime. Yeah, I did wake up early. Shut up. I'm not that old. Or maybe I am. How old am I? You don't know. Hey, let's do a commercial. I'm going to answer the rest of these questions here in a second. We might even tackle some more of that Colorado stuff. So, hey, Pond Boss Magazine, $35 a year. Cheaper than a Friday night date, and it lasts a year. Full of nuggets. Always a nugget. If you can't pull out a nugget out of each issue of Pond Boss that you can use, well, subscribe to Time. That's all I'm going to tell you. But $35 a year, cheaper than a Friday night date, and it lasts a year. Purina Mills, great fish foods. My favorite right now is Aquamax MVP. It's easy to get. It's 9 different particle sizes, high protein, fish meal based. It's a good fish food. Costs too much, but so does a gallon of gas. And when you're feeding 1.3 pounds of feed to gain a pound of fish, that's efficient. Texas Hunter feeders. I mean, that's my go-to. I love Texas Hunter because they have great customer service, great products. And Wayne Lancaster's not on here tonight, but he'll be the first one to tell you how good those products are. As a matter of fact, Debbie was in Waco today, and Wayne's wife Josie called her, and she was coming to Waco today to buy some stuff. They're building a house. So those two girls connected for Mexican food lunch and had a little margarita and had a little shopping time, and there you go. Easy Docks of Texas. If you're looking for a prefabricated dock, check out Easy Docks of Texas. And also the Institute of Higher Pondology. Email me for details. Mark Dyer, message me. Go ahead. If your son can come, I think that would be cool because I am on a mission myself. I do have a calling. My calling is to spread the word. And if we can get the word into young kids and get them involved in it, and forgive my pun, but if we can spawn a career in natural resource management, I'm all about that. So, yeah, I would certainly entertain your son coming, Mark Dyer. And it's this one's going to be October, I think, 24, 25, 26, whatever that Thursday, Friday, Saturday is. It's going to be at the West Ranch. Jacob West chimed in a while ago. Jacob is hosting it with his dad and his folks. The family is hosting it. They're north of St. Joe, Texas. 15-acre lake. Pretty cool. Well, the hands-on stuff is really, really fun. Ron's been to a couple of these. The West have been to 3 of them. I think we've only done 4. And so this will be number 5, and it's well worth it. $1,500 is all in. That includes all the food, all the lodging, a shirt, curriculum, everything. That's it. Which sounds a little high, but move on past it. It's worth it. So write the check. I love saying that. I don't know why, but I do. So there's the commercials. Oh, and you know what? Before I tap into this, I told you guys the last time I was able to come on and stay on, unlike last Tuesday where I didn't have a good internet connection. My kids, my oldest son, I have a son that's 50. Believe that or not. Last Christmas or last Thanksgiving, he says, Dad, you've got some pretty cool stories. You need to write these down so we can have them after you're gone. Well, the actuarial tables tell me I'm going to live 5 more years. So I thought, you know what? He's right. I need to write these down. How many times have you been around a campfire, listening to some old head telling stories, thinking, God dang, he needs to write that down? Well, I did that. I have written about 60 very cool stories. Well, I think they're cool because they happened to me. And a lot of them were life lessons, things that have happened to me that molded how I think and what I do. And so I wrote them down. And then another one of my sons, Jonathan, says, Dad, not only do you need to write them down, you need to record them so we can see you telling the story. So I hired Chico, Mike Garcia, my good friend, a couple, 3 weeks ago, and he came here and we spent 3 days of me telling stories. So some of those stories at some point, probably 2 months from now, are going to end up on YouTube. So anyway, as Chico was hearing me tell the stories, he says, I know your kids want these stories, but some of these stories people would like to read about. They'd like to hear about. And then I bounced them off of my editor friend, the guy that taught me how to write, Mark McDonald. I sent him about 10 of them. He said, these consumers would like to read these stories. So now they're convincing me that I should put together a book and make it public where you guys can read these stories. So now my mind is headed in that direction. And I was going to name this book Living a Pretty Cool Life, because when somebody says, hey, how are you doing? I always say it. I'm still leading a pretty cool life, which is absolutely true. I lead a very cool life, very fun life. And McDonald says, no, that's your subtitle. He said, after reading some of these stories, the title of your book is Mud Between Your Toes. So that's going to be the name of the book, and I'm working on that now, and I want to let you guys know about that because you may want one, I don't know, for Christmas or something, I don't know. it won't be ready by Christmas. All this stuff these guys are having me do is going to take me a little longer. Okay, Michael Larry, what's your thoughts on putting a few muskie or tiger muskie in a pond to keep the other fish numbers on key? If so, how many? Yeah, I do like that idea. I like it in the Midwest. I like it if you would draw a line from, I'm going to say, just south of St. Louis, Missouri, through Tulsa, Oklahoma, and then curve it up to Denver. From that line north, I think tiger muskies could be a real good idea. I wouldn't put muskies, but I would put some tiger muskies. And part of the reason is to help control the numbers of overpopulating fish. The farther north you go, overpopulating fish tends to lean more toward bluegills than it does anything else, whereas along that line, largemouth bass are the ones that have a tendency to overpopulate. So, how many? Start with 3 per acre and buy hammer handles that are about 12 inches long. Now, they're pretty pricey. You know, they're like $2 an inch. So a 10-inch tiger muskie is going to cost you $20, probably. But you're not going to buy that many. Yeah, Mark Dyer messaged me on that. Ron Ardwan, can you talk about the significance of water temperature, what 1 degree or more means to sport fish in hot summer days, and how to think about that major element when designing a fishery, communicating, working with dirt contracts for specific level changes and structure placement. Damn, boy. Look at you asking questions. That's pretty solid. Yeah, I'll talk about that. So the significance of water temperature, out of every other single parameter, listen to me now, every other single parameter, water temperature is the most important. Now, water quality, yep, if the water quality sucks, if the water's not happy, it doesn't matter what temperature it is. But we're going to presume that most of our ponds have happy water most of the time. Now, there may be times they don't, but water temperature influences fish behavior. And 1 degree can make a difference. You know, a largemouth bass, for example, its peak operating temperature range is going to be between about 65 and 82. Cooler than that or warmer than that, 83 maybe. It's harmful. It hurts. So if your water temperature, if you're aerating a pond and you've eliminated the thermocline and you're 88 degrees top to bottom, those fish are distressed. Largemouth bass are for sure. Bluegill not as much, but largemouth bass absolutely. So temperature triggers everything that happens in pond management, everything. It triggers when the plants grow. Each plant's got a different window. It triggers how the fish behave. It triggers when they spawn. It triggers when they stop spawning. So when you're designing a new lake, when I'm designing a new lake, I take that into consideration. I want to know, where's the dirt guy going to get the dirt to build the dam? Is it going to come from in front of the dam? Is there going to be any shallow water? I want to know all that. So what I have my clients do first thing is flag where the water line is. Then we have a discussion with the dirt guy. Where is he going to get the dirt to build the dam? What are you going to do with the topsoil that's in the bottom of the lake? Some of that needs to come out. And then we want to mold the basin of the lake to create the very best habitat that we can. And a lot of thought is given to temperature. Now, when I'm thinking about temperature, Ron, we're going to go take this just a little deeper than the question. When I'm thinking about designing a lake and I'm thinking about temperature, I'm also thinking about prevailing winds. So when the wind blows, like where you live, the predominant wind is probably either out of the south or the southeast. So I want to know what's happening on the northwest side of a pond. When that wind blows, it comes in off of that Gulf of Mexico and South LA, what's it going to do? How's it going to create currents? How's it going to move? How's it going to bend around those coves? How's it going to bend around those points? And that's oftentimes how I'll decide what to tell a landowner on how to build a point or where to put a peninsula, is based on the direction of the wind to help slow the wind down or to let the wind move the water in currents that can help benefit that pond. And then I'm also trying to figure out how we can place the right kind of cover that can breach the thermocline so that the fish, especially largemouth bass, can have a choice as to what depth they go to and still be around some kind of structure that they can orient to. So there you go. There's that answer. Hope that's more than you were expecting. But that was a great question, dude. You know it. It was a good question. Danny Max, Black Rum and Coke. Mark Dyer, what's the most effective method of gar removal from a pond? There's not a real good effective method for gar removal other than fishing for them. Let me talk about that. Whenever a pond has got gar are top line predator ambush feeders. So if you've got gar in a pond, the pond can't sustain nearly as many gar as it can largemouth bass. Now the gar like to typically hang close to elevation in shallow water and ambush small fish. Well, if you know that, if you've got some gar, and they're typically, most ponds they can't reproduce very well. Some they can. I've seen it many times. But most situations where there's gar, they got there because that water communicated with a natural watershed nearby during a flood. So what you can do there is you can set up like a trot line with live bait on it, and if you'll get a piece of nylon cord, cut it about 5-6 inches long, tie a knot in it, burn the end of that, and then fray it where it looks like a hairdo, and then stick that over the hook when you fish with a golden shiner or a bluegill or whatever you're fishing with. When you catch that gar, its teeth get hung up in that nylon and you can catch it. $90 for a bag of 400. That's ridiculous. Any creative way to add trees and stumps to an existing pond? Slope is shallow, so trying to add from the side water isn't deep enough to float them. Well, there's two ways, Jeremy. One is to have a pontoon boat and put them on the front of the pontoon boat and back them out into the water, and then either push them off or tie a rope to them that's long enough and have it tied to the front end loader on your tractor, and have a slip knot to where you can, when you get them in place, you can back the boat off and then back it up fast enough that the rope tied to the bucket will pull them off the front of that pontoon work boat, and then you can just pull the knot loose and pull the rope off of it. So the slope is shallow, trying to add them. The side water isn't deep enough. Yeah, you got to go over to the deeper water to do that. Might need a long rope. Another way is to get a track hoe with a 30-foot boom and a thumb on the bucket, and just pick them up and go drop them and tether them like you're going to anchor a boat. You can tether them to some concrete blocks so they don't float away. Now, if the stumps have got a little bit of dirt on them, they're going to be more likely to sink. So, and my best answer is you should have done it before the water filled it. I've seen Jeremy's pond, so I can say that to him. He's laughing. I hear him. So's Tiffany, if she's listening to this. Josh Milski. Josh is a moderator on the Pond Boss Forum, by the way. He bought his 11-year-old nephew 2 years of Pond Boss. That's great. Now let me know about him. You know what? Hey Josh, have him ask me a question and I'll answer it and ask the boss. You send it to me. Say, hey, my nephew so-and-so has got a question. Here it is. Yep, a platform might work, but yep, those things can be heavy. Yes, they can. Aquamax 4. Yep, I get it. Danny Mac. So Danny, you know what? One of the things I love about Danny Mac is he is a deep thinker. He's a NASA type engineer and physicist and just a thinker of deep thoughts. And he says, hey, wait. So he's going to debate the actuarial tables. I like that. There's another rule. If you're alive today, you like to have another 20 years. I don't know if I want 20 years. Let's see, 69, 79, 89. Yeah, if I can get around pretty good and I can still talk to you, I'll do it. Hey, Jared Reynolds, you're going to need an audio book. You know what? I think I know how to do an audio book. Yeah, as much as you're on the road, dude, you know what? And I got to learn how to do that. I don't know how to do it, but I'll figure that out. Good to see Jared Reynolds. I serve on a board with Jared. Jared's a great guy. Ron, for everyone tuning in, you'll get $1,500 worth in the first couple hours you show up. Bob is awesome. His professional guests are awesome. And it's also about the attendees. there's the deep truth about that. The people that you meet at the Institute of Higher Pondology, they will become longtime friends. I mean, even the last two that we've done, there are text threads going among all those different guys who befriended each other. And you know what? And Ron's exactly right. That's the Pond Boss community and the family that it does last a lifetime. Tim Stewart, our good friend who came to one of the pondology courses, any experience with paddle? Yes, I have some experience with paddle fishing ponds. There's not very many sources, and they're picky about who they will sell the fish to. But I think paddlefish are a fantastic idea in ponds that are at least, I'm going to tell you, they need to be 5 acres or bigger. And it's simply because those fish get so massive, and they're filter feeders. So if you've got a 10 or 15 acre lake or an 8 acre lake, and it's eutrophic, I think paddlefish are a pretty good idea. You don't have to have that many. And the reason that they started raising paddlefish, they started this was Ozark Cat Fisheries, the Carr family, Lake of the Ozarks, Missouri. The reason they started raising them was to start a caviar business. Well, the caviar business went to hell in a handbasket because the price fell, and that's a whole nother story. But I look at them as a resource to help extract nutrients that have a tendency to make water unhappy. So yeah, I think I've had some experience with paddlefish. Matter of fact, Innsbruck, just west of St. Louis, Chris Chavetta, those guys have stocked a bunch of them, and they were in the paddlefish ranching program with Ozark Cat Fisheries back then. But what they found was their water quality improved a lot, which I think that's a good idea. John Harson, will the tiger muskie reproduce? No, they won't. They're a cross between northern pike and muskie. They're a true mule. They're a true hybrid. What are the chances of getting a couple of tiger muskies here at San Antonio, say in December? Swamped with bluegills all sizes. Where's my bass? You know what, Danny Mac? I don't know what the chances are to get a couple of them there. I don't think they'd live. I think it's too hot. And then they're an exotic species. If they escaped, there might be an issue. But I just can't imagine them making it, even with your water moving like that. How big will the tiger muskie get in a 2 acre pond in northern Kentucky and Indiana? I'm going to tell you, I've seen them 42 inches in upstate New York. I shocked up a 38-inch one in Calhoun, Missouri, in an old reclaimed coal mine lake. So Danny Mac's doing his math. Stephen Martin, I think I put 6 largemouth bass in my half-acre pond. They've been in there for 3 years now. There's thousands of perch and minnows in there too. Haven't seen any bass fry yet. That makes sense because if you've got that many perch and minnows and things, Stephen, the bass fry are probably getting eaten. And I don't know that it's an issue with spawning as much as it's an issue with that many sunfish. Uh-oh. Oh, here it is. So let me keep reading here. Okay. Come on, Lusk. Play the game. The perch don't sound... When you say perch, I'm going to presume you're talking about yellow perch. No, I think they're plenty mature. I just think that there's so many other fish eating the babies that there's no survival rate. So it may be a matter of putting a few more bass in there. Tim Deal, Central North Cackalack, 1 acre pond, depth of 1 to 10 feet, average 6 feet with 2 aerator diffusers. Use granular or individual bag muck digester or none at all. I would use a little bit, do it now, because if you've got aeration and you're moving the water and you've been feeding fish, especially if you've been feeding fish, then I would not be opposed to some muck digester. Now keep in mind, if you're buying Pond Boss muck digester, that's not us. That's somebody that hijacked our name and I didn't stop it when I should have. Ron's going to put me on the spot, so I'm going to just drive right by that. Bet you don't remember I know this. I don't know what the question was. I don't remember because I get a lot of calls, dude. But what I remember was I was interested in you and I was interested in helping you. And I can't say that about everybody. You know, there's a lot of folks that call me. They're kind of demanding, but I got a really good sense of you early on and knew that you were ready to do something a little different, see if you could build yourself a business, and I was interested in that. But no, I don't remember the first question. I don't remember what time I went to bed last night. Well, I kind of do. Okay, Daddy Mac needs a gar. Well, you can probably make a deal with one of the guys on here. What are the dates and prices? Hey, Colton Ridenauer, $1,500. The next date is October, whatever, it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It's October 24, 25, 26. I think that's what it is. Whatever that Thursday, Friday, Saturday is, $1,500. It'll be in St. Joe, Texas, at West Haven Ranch, which is a really nice ranch, great accommodations. It's real rustic cabins, you know, lodge type thing they've got a very good, very, very cool classroom setting, 15-acre lake, and that's what it is, $1,500 all in. Ron says, I asked why the visibility of my water was lower in the morning, cleared up midday, and then became lower in the afternoon. Microbes migrating to cooler water temperatures during peak heat and adjusting to the temperature. There you go. That's it. Hello, Scott Thrash. Any idea where I might find a source for male-only bluegill or copper-nosed bluegill? Since you are in Del Rio, Texas, Scott Thrash, because I know that, I tell you who I would call. I would call Herman's Fish Farm outside of Corpus Christi. Look those guys up. I think they could be a good resource. American Sportfish might be able to help, but I would call Herman Fish Farm at Robstown. That's where they are. Hey, Dave Sefton, good to see you. Fred's on here too today. Grandson Bentley, 8-year-old, helped build his first pond in a subdivision. Pictures and stories. Hey, yeah, great. I'm always looking for stories for Pond Boss, and Dave Sefton is a pond builder from Brownstown, Illinois. He and Fred are buddies. So an 8-year-old helped build his first pond. Dude, that's so cool. I would love to have that story. I'm always looking for stories. So if you guys have some stories, let me know. Michael Eric, I was told by 2 different Iowa DNR fish biologists that regular muskie will not spawn successfully in Iowa ponds. What's your thoughts? That's probably right, because you don't have the right conditions for them to spawn. But that doesn't mean that they don't carry eggs. They do carry eggs. So odds are very, very low that muskies will spawn in Iowa ponds. Now, northern pike, they probably would, but not muskies. Colton, we're running into issue with state environmental concern with them getting out into critical habitat in the river if it's extreme high water. Yep, I get that. I totally get that. Talking about tiger muskies, I presume that's what you're talking about. And you know what? And that's rightly so. If the odds of those fish escaping are reasonable, I don't think I'd stock them. And not only just to protect the state waters, but also it's your investment. Jason Dodd, I've noticed the scales of my shiners, hybrid striped bass around the hills and tail. And grass carp been falling off. What's going on? Rod Hardway, I met Tim Stewart at the Institute of Higher Pondology, and he won't leave me alone. Yeah. Jason, you're always coming up with something. Around the hills and tail. I don't know what a hill is on a fish. Why would the scales be falling off? Let me think about that. If it was one species of fish, I'd have an answer for you. The only thing that I can think of is part of the slime's job on a fish. The slime is the first protective coating against bacteria and diseases of fish. But the slime also, when it's intact, helps protect the fish's scales as well. So now I'm wondering, I tell you where I would start with that. I'd look at the water chemistry and see if something's changing. Is the water becoming more acidic? I don't have a really good answer for that right now. But that, if I were going to try, if somebody was going to hire me to figure that out, which I'm not for hire now for that, I'd start looking at the water chemistry, Jason, and call Leonard Yarrick and ask him, because odds are pretty high that he has seen that before if it's common. Okay, let's see here. Mark Dyer, can paddlefish be beneficial if your lake is eutrophication with lots of... Yep, yes they could. What exactly are they filtering to feed on? Cyanobacteria is not one of their preferred feeds, but they can extract enough of the single cell algae species to extract enough nutrients to help balance the nitrogen phosphorus imbalance that allows cyanobacteria to grow in the first place. So cyanobacteria, blue-green algae, is a consequence of that bacteria, which not an algae, it's a bacteria, can outcompete all the good stuff because there's an imbalance between phosphorus and nitrogen. There's usually not quite enough nitrogen compared to the phosphorus that allows cyanobacteria to gain such a good foothold. However, with that said, the paddlefish can be a preemptive strike to help minimize the risk of a blue-green algae bloom starting up in the first place. Okay. Here's Ron, you're welcome. Mark Dyer, come get them. Take a bunch of channel catfish too. Herman's Fish Farm, Robstown. Yep, that's right. We're gonna, you know what? I'll take on the. Hey, John Harson, I would call Herman Brothers in Peoria, Illinois. They know everybody up that way. Oh, Gills, not Hills. Okay, all right. I don't know why this. Yeah, I don't have a good answer for that. So let's see here. Let me back up. Yeah, call Nate Herman Brothers in Peoria, Illinois. He knows where to get tiger muskies. I'm pretty sure they come out of, I think they come out of Minnesota. And they harvest them in the fall. So now's the time to be calling if you want to place an order for tiger muskies. Hey, Wyatt. Wyatt's our firefighter friend from Denver, Colorado, with a place in Abilene, Texas. But with the drawdown, should I cut back the feeding quite a bit? I don't know that I would cut the feeding back because of the drawdown. I think I'd cut the feeding back based on how much they're going to eat. Because when it's hot as it is around Abilene, Texas right now, and the temperature is getting ready to mitigate, the 10-day forecast looks pretty good. We got several days where the high is only going to be in the 80s, which we've been looking forward to that. Didn't expect it. But I would cut back the feeding if the fish aren't eating. Cut back the feeding. If the glove don't fit, you must have quit. If they don't eat it, don't feed it. Colton, hopefully we will be running some gill nests this year to help get some largemouth bass numbers up. Started our feeding program. It's still around that 8 to 9 inch size. Waiting on our shocking data to come back. Yeah, we need to talk about that. Yeah, John Harson, Herman Brothers in Peoria, Illinois. You know what, Danny Mac? Paddlefish. I would be if I'm in Austin, and they don't ask me because they don't care. But Austin has always got a blue-green algae problem every stinking year. Well, guys, this hour has flown by. Holy cow, look at that. We're at 7:29 already. This was fun. Glad we got to hang out. You know the drill. Pond Boss Magazine. $35 a year, cheaper than a Friday night date, and it lasts a year. I do appreciate you guys hanging out with me and bouncing these questions off and having fun. I don't know where I'll be next. Oh, yeah, I do know where I'll be next Tuesday. I get to go sit for 10 days at my daughter's house with my granddaughter, Gentry, who is 16, and they have a foreign exchange student. So they have to have an adult in the house. So Debbie will be the adult, and I'll just be tagging along. So I'll be broadcasting from Gunter, Texas next Tuesday night. So hey, thanks for joining. So until next Tuesday, adios for now. See ya.